Hi, everyone. I have a terrific guest today. Her name is Terrie Christine. And what's wonderful about Terrie is that she's an internationally known intuitive life coach, a psychic medium, and a speaker, author, and creator of the Secret Power of You Master course. After experiencing a spiritual epiphany, which I really need to find out how that happened, Terrie. But after experiencing a spiritual epiphany, Terrie found herself on a journey building and supporting what she calls her superpowers. She's a clairaudient, which is hearing, a clairvoyant, which is seeing, and a clairsentient, which is feeling, which are all of the things that you need, of course, to communicate well. Well, most people cannot connect to the blocks that hold them back from receiving love and happiness and peace nor abundance. They live their lives being triggered by what another says or does. Simply put, she can connect to your energy and reveal when you accepted this block, at what age, and by whom, and then energetically shift this block out of our subconscious, your subconscious, so you can bring in all that you deserve in your life. Well, Terrie, all I can say is if you can do that for every single person you meet, what a better world we would have. So, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gail. I appreciate you inviting me here and to your listeners. And yes, I can. And I do it with actually lots of unconditional love and ease and grace for the world. I look forward to doing this. I feel like it's my passion and purpose.
Well, it's interesting when people always tease beauty contestants by saying, what is your biggest wish? And they always say world peace. Mine really is world peace. I mean, I really do want world peace. So tell us about your story. I mean, how did you get to where you are today?
So thank you. I tell people I have a story inside of a story. It's sort of two things that kind of melded into one. But I was in a 14-year relationship, and that very last year, I was really distraught. I was wanting love. I felt I was in this relationship. I don't know if anyone has ever felt that you're in a relationship and you don't feel love, you don't have love, but you're in a relationship. Well, 14 years cried every night for that end of the year, excuse me, the last year. And 3 months before the end of that relationship, I woke up at that happy hour time, which is 3 a.m. when magical things happen. I crawled out of the bed and went into the bathroom and I laid on the floor. And all of a sudden, I felt this sense of calmness all around me. And then I felt like I was floating. And then I saw all these stars so close that I thought I could touch them. And then I felt I tasted like this dampness in my mouth. And I'll never forget the moment that I heard those words. Love will come. I'm like, oh my God. It's as if God was standing right next to me because I was wanting love so deeply and so profoundly in this relationship that I didn't even love myself. And God was telling me, yes, it's going to come. You're going to have it. Yes, love will come. What you're asking for will come. And that very next day, my entire life changed. I started reading like self-transformational books and self-healing. And people started coming to me randomly, giving me messages out of the blue. I started getting into crystals and essential oils. And then I took some courses. And then the more courses that I took, I started going teaching and learning from the masters. And then in the middle of all of that too, another little story kind of flipped things around. My sister was very close to my grandfather, and all his life he had a heart murmur. I used to sit on his lap when I was little, and we used to laugh and giggle, and I would lay my head on his chest, and I would hear that heart skip a beat because of the heart murmur. And I would look at him as a little girl, and I would say, "Oh, Granddad, you love me so much. Your heart is skipping a beat." We would laugh and giggle. And then My sister ended up being a single mom and had a 2-year-old. And my grandmother had passed away 5 years prior to the time that my grandfather and sister started spending time together. So he would go to her house every weekend and sort of became the surrogate dad to her small child. And one day he woke up and had some pains in his intestinal area and said he had to go to the hospital just to get an exam and that he'll let us know what's going on. So later in the day, my sister gets a phone call, and it's the hospital saying my grandfather passed away instantly on the MRI table and that they're very sorry and he's passed. Well, she was devastated. And every year, the anniversary of his death, she would become more and more depressed. And on the 5th year, she started telling me that she didn't know if she was going to be able to live anymore because all she wanted to do was be with him, to talk to him, to know that he was happy and he wasn't in pain. All she wanted was just one more time. So as a sister, I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't allow this to happen. What am I going to do? I've got to do something. So I actually manifested, and I could talk about that because I'm a master manifested. I manifested meeting a medium. So I hooked up a 3-way conversation on the telephone, and the woman connected to my grandfather instantly and gave my sister the answers of what she was looking for. She didn't know me or my sister from the moment we spoke on the phone was the first time that she'd ever met us. She told us things that she would never have known. But she gave my sister the answers that my grandfather was happy. He was with my grandmother. He wasn't in pain. She described the moment that he transitioned from physical to non-physical, that he saw the light and all he did was step in and he instantly felt happy. He instantly was relieved of his pain.
I'm going to stop you there, Terrie, because there's a couple of questions that I want to ask you. And I know our listeners, like to hear a lot of different things based on what you're saying. Number one, first of all, I'm going to go back to what you were talking about, that you were in this relationship for 14 years. When you laid on that floor in the bathroom and you discovered all these things, how long did it take you to come out of the relationship you were in?
3 months.
So it took another 3 months. And what do you think? Because a lot of our listeners are in, relationships that probably are not healthy for them. Why do you think you were in that relationship for 14 years? Evidently, you were not married. You were, you were together. What made you stay with a person for that length of time? And why did it take another 3 months for you to get out of the relationship?
That's a great question. I lived on hope. I kept saying to myself, I can show him how much I love him. I can show him how much our family unit loves him. He had his own issues about trust and women and relationships and all of that. So I kept living day by day, living on hope that wasn't getting me anywhere. That energy of hope has you sitting in that vortex of not moving. So that's what kept me going. And I kept thinking, okay, he'll change, he'll see it, he'll know. And I kept living on having him love me versus me loving myself. And that transition from when I was on the floor and knowing God told me love will come, it was all from the inside. And so that next day, when I started reading the books on how to love myself from the inside and honoring my own feelings, that 3 months was very short. Because literally from 14 years of staying with him over and over and over again, of living outside of myself and trying to get him to love me, and within 3 months of seeing that I can love myself and saying I finally honor that what makes me happy is me, and that I don't have to continue to try to make you happy because that's not getting me anywhere. Adios.
It's interesting because there are people, and I'm sure many of them are listening, who just stay in relationships too long. Now, for me, that seems unimaginable because, if someone doesn't connect with me and I don't feel that there is a connection there, they're gone, and it just is amazing that it takes that long to realize something. And that's why I hope our listeners are understanding that if the partner that you're with, whoever it is, you don't have that commitment from them to be the way you think a relationship should be, you need to get out of it. And then on to your sister and your grandfather. You know, my son is very spiritual, and he believes that when my husband died, he transitioned into the arms of our son, who had passed away before him, and that his mother and my mother, well, my mother wasn't actually gone yet, but that he had, you know, he had just gone into her arms and to the arms of our son. And it's interesting that you said that when your granddad transitioned, he was greeted by his wife. So those are all, you know, I think important messages for our listeners to hear. So what was the bottom line of what happened to your sister?
So she actually received the messages as she was looking for total confirmation, and she was never depressed after that. And at the end of that conversation, the woman said, I never saw myself doing this. If I can do this, anybody can do this. So she actually healed from that. But that moment, I took that in and I said to myself, if that woman can save people's lives, because that's the way I looked at it, I want to do that. And then it became my journey to create and save people's lives. So I went into that, learning all the modalities and learning with the masters, and then that's how I became a medium myself and a psychic, and the intuitive life coaching, because I use and move and manipulate energy to help people shift out those blocks so that they can live in the happiness and abundance that they so deserve.
So what really is the definition of an intuitive life coach?
So, an intuitive life coach connects to the energy of the person so that I can actually use my superpowers, my clairvoyance, audience, and sentience, as you described to the listeners. I'll see a movie, I'll hear full sentences or someone talking to me. I'll feel and know that what's going on in their body, their energy, their collective consciousness, or their subconscious below. And I can tell them what that core block, what they took in and owned, that's holding them back from living the life they truly desire and deserve. And so the difference between the intuitive part is the energy, the energetic flow. And I go right to the core element versus having them in like a traditional life coach, talk it out, work it out, let's relive it. I don't have them doing all of that. I go in, I shift the energy, I do some energy statements, and then I give them a little bit of homework so that they can move forward out of the old patterns and into the new.
So what if some of our listeners struggle to get past their own resistance? I mean, they're listening to this and saying, "Hogwash." What do you suggest?
So I suggest, first off, trusting and seeing that what's going on, there's all triggers in our life. You can be in a job and then your work or your coworker or your boss says, okay, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And the first thing you might feel like, what? Why did they say it that way? Or why do they think? That's a trigger right there. So if you find that you have a feeling that tweaks you or makes you feel like, what? Or feels angry that you don't know where that anger is coming from, that right there is your hidden block. So if you feel that what I'm saying is kind of frou-frou or out there, look back at what you're being triggered, because it's not what someone else is doing to you. It's that internal block or that false belief that you took in and owned, and that you can let that go and know that that person is not creating that in you. You already have that within you that you need to let go and move forward from.
That's very interesting. So since this program is, you know, living regret free, what does it mean to you to live regret free?
You know, I love that. That I can look back and know that I lived in some really deep pain and sorrow. But I can look back and say, if I didn't experience that, I never would be here helping people so profoundly that I have. I don't regret living how I live.